So I bought my house like 3 years ago or so, 2022. I think this is the photo. I think this is a photo from closing day. I can't remember. But here's the lawn, how it kind of started off. A mixture of St. Augustine, probably some common Bermuda, definitely in a few different areas. I can't remember if this specific area of the front yard had common in it, but it's like a mixture of grasses. There's like a deeper green over here, some like fading over here, a different color here. Like, it's just kind of like a messy lawn with, like, you know, not too many weeds, though the St. Augustine is choking out a good amount of the weeds. And competing with Bermuda. And again, I'll show you some in another spot, but I get emails and comments on YouTube all the time about like folks, they say they have like common Bermuda or like a mixture or like a bumpy lawn or like limited funds or limited time. And that people are just mainly asking like, can I do this, what you've done? And the answer, you know, in most cases is yes. And so I'm just going to kind of like take you along, give you an idea to answer all those questions. I usually don't do that long of videos. I like to keep my videos short, 20 to 60 seconds. This one's going to be a little bit different, of course. So anyways, this is kind of where we started. And this is the backyard. Again, I don't have too many photos of the lawn. That definitely was, you know, not the focus. I was honestly photographing some privacy issues I was going to plan to address and whatnot in this photo. But you can see in the backyard, it kind of gives you an idea of like the neglection that the yard has. Tons of weeds right along there. Much worse condition in the front yard. Now, honestly, both front and back are weed free. But I don't treat my back as much as my front yard because I have several dogs. And we can have a video talking about chemicals and whatnot, how they, you know, if you should be treating your yard with what chemicals and what kind of rules, and how that's a whole different video, treating your yard with dogs, but happy to do that. But that the backyard is looking a lot better than this, is what I'm saying, but it's definitely nothing compared to my front yard. And again, just some more footage showing, like, you know, there's weeds throughout here. And this is the front yard again. Pretty brown over here. There is a sprinkler system. Honestly, the neighbor's lawn is much greener. This is just toast. There used to be a tree here, and so it's kind of uneven from that. And you know, lawns, to keep your lawn level, it's like something you have to do kind of with like yearly, annual basis. You know, organic matter breaks down. So if you have old tree roots and whatnot, you start to get, like, as that decays, you start to get uneven, like basically every year. So it's just a matter of, and I use sand for that. I got a separate video on that. But here's another piece of another photo of from the other corner of the lot. Mainly St. Augustine, but this does connect to a Bermuda grass yard. So there's Bermuda throughout this. If you have any type of grass you border with Bermuda, you know, Bermuda does spread pretty quickly, which is like an advantage if you have it. But if your neighbors have it, obviously it gets a bad reputation. But one thing I changed, that is pretty clear to see in this photo or after this photo, but the sprinklers. So I took this, obviously this is one zone running, and I put a head, I capped this one and capped that one over there, because it's, first of all, it's wasting water on the sidewalk, and the water bill can get quite high if you're not super efficient. It doesn't have to be high like that, and that's not what I'm saying either. But if you set it up properly, like, you know, my water bill kind of can cut in half by not you know, watering all the sidewalk, and as you see, it's running down the road and whatnot. So what I did was I capped this and I capped this, and then I put little pop-up spray heads throughout this in a separate zone. And then over here, I added a zone right there, a head there, and all four corners in the front. So 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then this ran on a separate, over here, these ran on a separate zone. There's one, I think there's one there, 2, 3, and 4. So that's one zone, 2 zone, 3 zone. So basically took this and broke one zone and broke it into 3. Much better coverage, much better pressure and throwing distance and whatnot. A lot of things got better from that, and obviously a lot less waste. So if you're moving into a home that's, you know, there's clearly some corners cut, you know, that was something that really transformed my lawn. We'll talk more about this in a second. Here you can see some more of the thick St. Augustine. Again, I cropped this from another photo. I had a plumber doing some work at the road on the meter, or close to the meter, excuse me. But you can see not too many weeds, but definitely a ton of St. Augustine. And then this, I think, is the next year. I think this is coming into the spring. So a ton of weeds like Poa annua, pretty much everything, like just really awful looking. My neighbors, they use a lawn service. If you're in DFW and you're looking for a lawn service and you don't want to do it yourself, Kelly Green does this lawn and this lawn. They're like pretty decent. I would definitely like avoid True Green. Some folks use True Green. I tried True Green. They're more of a sales company than a lawn company. I don't want to say anything too bad about them, but like for a very similar price, if not better, you can use like a local company that will actually do a pretty decent job. As you can see, their lawn, weed free. I don't see any green over there. My lawn at the time, full of weeds. And so if your lawn looks like this right now, first thing is put down a pre-emergent. Generally you want to time it each year, but late is better than never. So always get a pre-emergent down. The cheapest pre-emergent is prodiamine. That's what you generally use in the spring. When soil temps reach 55 degrees, you can go on. There's a few websites that have like soil temperature graphs and whatnot, so you can go that route, or stick a thermometer in the ground in your lawn as well and check for 55. That's when you want pre-emergent down. So put it down, water it in, follow the label. And then in the fall, people use spectacle flow. So for the winter weeds, like what we're seeing right here, this is actually based on what I did in the fall. And obviously, I don't think I put anything down, honestly. I can't recall. I may have. Doesn't matter. But by the looks of it, I didn't put anything down, or I put it down wrong. So this is mainly Poa annua. A lot of this it could be a mixture of honest. I can't even remember if I put down seed or what I did in the first little while. Because back then I didn't really know too much about what I was doing. I was just kind of messing around, testing things out. And so that's kind of how it looked. And if your lawn looks like this, pre-emergent, water it in. And then for post-emergent, that's when you spray basically weed killers to kill anything that you hit. You can't, like, it's not going to do anything in here. You have to get it on the leaf. And so that's the reason you don't want to water it in like pre-emergent. Pre-emergent gets watered in, you wash it off the leaf into the soil, and then, of course, post-emergent gets absorbed by the leaf. So, and then you want to use like a surfactant when you're spraying the leaf. So on a lawn like this, if your lawn looks like this, and it's like, I don't know, February, you can get Certainty. That's going to basically kill all these grassy weeds. As you can see, there's not really any broadleaf weeds, and by broadleaf, I just mean like wide blades, like, like clovers or things like that. This is very grassy looking, very narrow leaves. And so in that case, I use Certainty. If you have broadleaf, you use Celsius. If you have both, you mix the two and you can kill 99.9% of weeds in a Bermuda grass lawn. So they're a little more expensive, they're not $20. They are like at least $100 a piece. If you're in DFW or in a city, any city really, you can find people that will split it with you. You can get, $30 worth, you can get $60 worth, whatever. But if you look at the cost of like having a lawn care company, you spend a few $100s a year to not lawn care company, excuse me, like a fertilization and like chemical treating company. Because I just don't want to say lawn care, that implies they cut the grass too. But like a company that just specializes in like chemical applications, you're several $100s a year. You get a bottle of Certainty for like $120, and that's going to last you like, on my size of property, it's going to last you like 10 years. You're only going to need to buy it once, basically. You divide that up, you're looking at $12 a year. So and you use it, like you measure it in like literally grains of rice. It's the smallest amount. Is super effective. It's super concentrated. And so you would blanket spray this. If you have less weeds, you would just spray anything that's green, with Certainty. But with this, I would just blanket spray. As you can see, kind of tore up, doing a lot of work moving in. This had to be re-leveled. This is all crooked and whatnot. But yeah, you can see, and this time of year, you generally want it to be very dormant. You want your lawn to be brown. Anything green is likely a weed if you have Bermuda grass. Another picture, more weeds are coming up. A lot of bare soil. More weeds still. I'm just trying to show you like how rough the yard was. People see my yard, how it looks now, and they think like, can I do this? Absolutely. So this is kind of where it was at. And then this is coming into the spring. it's coming out of dormancy, and I believe I did some leveling as well. Again, don't level too early or it will look like this for an extended period of time. Now I'm thankful I did this because my lawn is very level. If you can do leveling in phases where you're just doing like a 1/4 inch or 1/2 inch at a time, but I did like 1 inch plus. And so the downside is the recovery is super, super slow and it looks rough. It looks like this for a long time, but the upside is like, you just kind of rip the Band-Aid off. Like now looking back, I'm like, oh, I don't have to ever level like majorly again. I just got to do like very minor levelings because of how aggressive I went here. And I had to because again, there was a tree here. So I don't know what they put down. They put down St. Seed or St. Augustine or whatever, like a different type of St. Augustine. There's some here and there's some over here. But there was a tree here. And then of course, this spot on my lawn is always, it just gets low every year. I have to keep leveling here again because the roots and whatnot break down. But who knows? Because people like don't understand that St. Augustine and Bermuda grass will spread. So if you have a little, you take out a tree, you don't have to do anything. You just got to fertilize and take care of it, and it will spread into that area. And then, of course, dealing with shade. So I had a big, as you can see, the tree right here. This area is very weak because there's a large tree just to the left of this picture. I had that removed as well. So that was a big thing. If I had to like break down things that really transformed my yard, number one was fixing the sprinklers, which I haven't done at the point of this photo, but that was one we already talked about. Number two is cutting down a very large tree. A little bit later, starting to fill in, obviously some bare spots, near where the sidewalk is, a little more water can like flow and erode there. So it can be tricky to get the grass to establish. But all that color over there is St. Augustine. This is all Bermuda. Similarly near the road, you can see like a strip of deep green right here. That's because that, sprinkler head kind of goes right along here. And then closer to the sprinkler is brown because it's not getting any water, and it's likewise past that over here, nothing. So I put a head right there, and then of course heads throughout here. So now that this head sprays all this, and that's all fixed. But there's a more dramatic version of that photo a little bit later. There's the sprinkler that's actually on, not putting out a ton of water because there's too many heads in the system. A little bit later, more fertilization, and a little bit too much phosphorus. So if you get this color in your lawn, this yellowy, that's putting down too much phosphorus and can cause problems. So this is like a combination. This area is overall struggling from one, erosion, two, shade from the tree. Again, it's not showing this photo, but it was definitely a large part of it. And then number three is phosphorus. If you apply a balanced fertilizer, you generally only do it like once or twice a year. When you get into a home, you sometimes want to be a little aggressive, but when you're being aggressive, you want to just stick to like a nitrogen only fertilizer. So like a 2100 or 4600. Those cost like $25, maybe $22 for the 2100, like a 40 or 50 pound bag, which will last, probably you can squeeze that all season, might even last longer for a lawn of, this size, 2,000, 3,000 square feet is roughly what I cover. It goes along the side of the house as well. But that's going to be pushing growth. And so when you do balance, which is like the 10-10-10 or 13-13-13, and of course there's on the BermudaBible.com, it explains some of this stuff, what those ratios mean. But the first one is nitrogen, the second number is phosphorus, the last one is potassium. Those are percentages, and so based on weight. So it's like 10-10-10. It's like 10% of each. So if you have 10 pounds of it, then there's 1 pound of nitrogen in that. There's 1 pound of phosphorus, 1 pound of potassium. And then you can basically calculate backwards, doing some napkin math to figure out, what you're trying to hit based on your square footage. And nitrogen you need every month, of course, but the last two you can kind of determine based off of a soil test, and soil tests are not expensive. Texas A&M offers one, and I have a link to, again, all 10 plus colleges and universities that offer those soil tests on the BermudaBible.com. Just type in soil test in the search bar. And so you can kind of work with like balanced once a year if you don't want to do a soil test, and then do nitrogen only for the rest. It's 1 pound per 1,000 square feet of nitrogen. But yeah, that's kind of the mistake there. That's another mistake I made, too much balance for it because my phosphorus and potassium were really low. When you get high phosphorus, it can cause a lot of problems. When you get high potassium, not as many problems. But the idea is like nitrogen is for like green growth. The second number, the P, is phosphorus. That is for like root health. So basically, nitrogen, everything above soil. P, everything below, and then K is like disease resistance. So that's good. Like fertilizers that are branded as like a winterizer or like a fall application generally have a lot of K, a lot of potassium. Yeah, pretty rough looking. You can see now I have a new, yeah, you can see their kind of new sprinkler zone is in place. So new head there, cap the one over there, and then I was able to, tweak it so it obviously doesn't get anything on that sidewalk, and then I adjusted it so it doesn't get any on here. But I think this is like the first day, so I haven't got that far with adjusting. But this eventually starts filling in because we have coverage there. And then this is going into dormancy. So this was, after a season, decent progress, still mowing with the rotary here. The lawn is it's somewhat level. It's not bad at all. The whole thing is on a slope though. You can't see in this photo, but it's high over here and low over here, and a ton of water rushes this way. So there is a slope to the lawn, but it's not super bumpy. And then I think this is going into kind of the spring of the following year. So from dormancy into the spring, looking not too bad. Just need some overall attention. But then now I got the Scott's reel mower. And so this is like $140, or if you go on Marketplace, you can scoop one up for a little less. And then you can customize it with this roller. So I bought one. This one's used, and it came with this roller. It's Ashland makes it, but it's not for the mower. It's like made for, I don't know what it's made for, conveyor belts or something. Honestly, I don't know, but I'm sure someone will correct me in the comments. But Ashland, Ashland, makes these rollers, and you can take the wheels off, and then it contours better, it gets lower. There's a few advantages to having a front roller, similarly with like reel mowers. So like McLean has a couple models of gas-powered reel mowers, and they have one with the front roller. It's definitely the one you want over the one with the wheels. So it applies to both manual and gas. But if you're on a limited budget and you don't have a lot of space, I can't say enough good things about this. And you want to get the 7-blade, the Scott's Pro. I actually had a reel mower just before this. It was a 5-blade and a little bit smaller. I definitely like, this was like 4 inches wider, which really adds up, honestly, even on a small lawn. It's so much quicker. And then the 7-blade, the more blades you get, the lower you can cut. And not in terms of like physical limitations, but in terms of like how it looks. And so like 7-blade, and then when you get into like, if you want to go down to a putting green or something like that one day, you need like a 10-blade or something. And so again, there's a reel mower page on the BermudaBible.com that goes over all that. Every topic we're going over is already covered with a separate article. I'm just trying to summarize how my journey went. And so it's floating pretty good. That's the one downside to the manual mower, is it can float and it can be hard to scalp. And so eventually I took like a dumbbell or some plates. I tried a couple different things, zip tied them here. I have a video on that on the channel, a short. If you go to my profile and sort by most popular videos, it's one of the most popular videos, you'll be able to see in the thumbnail a dumbbell hanging here. And so that helped. It's a little bit tricky to push. Of course, you're going uphill a little bit here, but it helps get a little bit lower, because my height of cut here is set to like, I don't know, 1/2 inch or 3/4 of an inch. But just looking at it, my height of cut is higher than that. It's low. It's not a 3-inch cut. It's definitely probably cutting somewhere around like 1 inch to 1.5 inches. And it looks, very good compared to like maybe like where I used to have it up at around this height, in my opinion. But that's kind of like an issue that I faced around now, is like the floating. The grass starts to get thicker, and that's good, right? It's almost like this mower did so well, it made itself redundant. It cut the lawn so efficiently and so effectively that the grass got super thick, and that's what happened. Just some more just mowing. I mean, you just keep mowing frequently, mowing every 3 days, watering right. As you can see, that the watering problem gone. New sprinkler setup, got the box there. remember this used to be all yellow and everything. It just completely turned around. So right now we're still manual mowing. We're fertilizing properly. What are we in for money? I mean, we're in for masonry sand, probably used 2 yards of that, probably about $100. Did it myself, so put it in the back of my truck and did a couple trips and gas and whatnot. So probably a little more than that if you include gas. And then what else did we do? And there's a separate video on leveling on the blog as well. But we also have fertilizer, which is $25. So we're $125. We got pre-emergent. You get prodiamine for $25. You got to buy it in the off season because it sells out in the spring. Then you got to buy the $100 big bottle. So we're at $150. Certainty, $120. Right. So it's a $150, $120, is it $270 if I'm adding correctly? $270, and then we got the $100 reel mower, so we're at $370. And some of these costs, remember, the Certainty and the reel mower, those, like, you'll have those for a long time. So you can either sell the reel mower and sell it for probably another $100 based on inflation where it is right now. You can probably sell it for what you paid for, and then the Certainty will last, forever. If you need the money, go on to a local lawn group and you'll find someone who needs it. And you just sell half your bottle for $60 and you'll get some money out of that, and you'll still have plenty enough for yourself. So you can kind of split it with some folks. And then the masonry sand is, kind of you're mainly done that. You got to do another half yard every year, and it's not one and done, but it's like 80% done after you do it once. So you just got to keep doing that little bit every year. So that's kind of like $370 is what it costs to go from what we had to this. And another thing, to get rid of St. Augustine, I hand pulled a lot, and I also use quinclorac. So quinclorac, about $20 on Amazon. So $370, so $390 if you have a St. Augustine lawn and you're trying to promote the Bermuda, like your neighbor has Bermuda, you can do that. So $390, not all at once. This is the span over $390 over the course of a year. So you're looking at $39 a month for a year to get to this, where we're at right now. Irrigation, if you have irrigation problems, of course, there's always situations where, you might have a fine sprinkler system. Mine just happened to be really awful. I haven't seen a lot of people with those problems. So hopefully not. Otherwise, yeah, I did pay like $750 a zone or something like that. Because it wasn't just adding a zone, it was like splitting the existing zones. But so that's where we're at. We're still reel mowing here with the manual mower. It's looking like pretty decent. And it's looking flat. The reel mower makes your lawn look flatter than it actually is. And reel mowers do better on bumpy lawns than rotary, just because of like how the wheels are positioned. People get it kind of backwards, but you don't have to mow low. Like there are several height adjustments on this, where if you have a really bumpy lawn, you can reel mow at 2 inches. But you'll soon realize, oh, you know what? My lawn's super bumpy, but I can actually mow at 1 inch, or I can mow at 1.5 inches. Like there's a lot of natural hesitation with beginners because they think their lawn is too bumpy for reel mowing. And I see people going to buy a rotary, and I'm like, oh man, like unless you got a massive multi-acre property where you're just like, okay, I can't afford like a riding reel, then I understand having a riding rotary. It just save your money. You're looking at a $600, $800 push mower Honda. You can get a used McLean much cheaper than that, but you can get like a lot of things, even like a higher model of McLean, like the one with the front roller for around that. I mean, you get on Marketplace for $600 to $800 and you can find some great things. So, but even the push mower, this push mower for $100 is going to perform better than a $600 or $800 Honda push rotary. So, kind of people walk by and always comment, oh, I used to do that 50 years ago or whatnot. I'm like, yeah, it's not just like old technology. Like it's actually, and some people think like, oh, it's because I don't like the exhaust or whatever. Like I'm trying to be environmentally friendly, and sure, there's an aspect of that, but that's not the reason I'm doing this. The reason I'm doing this is because it actually offers a better cut than most modern mowers. I need some edging here, of course. I get those comments a lot, but you can see a little bit of washboarding up there. And that's just because the lawn's getting so thick. You keep pushing the right fertilizer, the 2100, which is called ammonium sulfate, or the urea 4600. Again, links to that on the blog. I'll put in the description. You're pushing that all the time, like every week or two. and you're mowing with a real mower, even a manual one, and you're watering it properly, like, it's not super complicated. It will get thick over time. The sunlight's coming in. You dealt with the shade. Like, it starts coming together. It doesn't feel quick when you're doing it. Like, we are a year and a half into this. It's not like I'm working on it every day, though. You kind of just waiting, and then all of a sudden things are looking better. So this is when I got my first gas-powered reel mower. So in the background, I have my Toro GM1000 there. I also have a McLean Greenskeeper. But I got the McLean after the Toro. And those are gas-powered reel mowers that, they're self-propelled. So it's super easy going up this little bit of an incline. Again, you can't really see how much of an incline it is. You have to trust me that, that it's quite steep coming over here, and it flattens out more this way. But when the lawn gets thick and you're pushing up and down, and it's 105 degrees outside, it kind of starts, pushing and swearing to yourself and cursing, and you're kind of like, I don't know about this mowing every 3 days kind of thing. And you don't need to mow every 3 days. If you don't want to mow every 3 days, you can do a plant growth regulator, PGR, called T-Nex. Again, there's a type in PGR on the blog, and that'll come up for you, and you can read all about that. And that's an option. Not super expensive, but you can spray that every like 10 days or so. And there's a guide on how to actually break that down based on the sunlight and whatnot in your area. But you can spray that and then turn into mowing like every week. But you can avoid all that and just mow every 3-4 days or so. And so the lawn started getting a lot better. You start seeing some stripes. And that stripe is from the roller there on the back. It kind of pushes the grass down each way. And as you get lower, it can get harder to get stripes. So if I bumped up the height of cut here, the stripes would look a lot more, just be a lot more obvious. And this is probably mowed around 5/8. So my neighbors joke, they're like, oh, I'm going to come over and putt on your lawn. You can't actually putt on this. Like 5/8 is, I think that's longer than the fairway at most decent golf courses. 5/8 is, it looks short in a residential application, but like these putting greens are like, I'm pretty sure they're around like 1/4 inch or so. I haven't maintained a putting green. I might take this down to that low this year. We'll see, because we're getting super, super level with the spot levelings I've been doing, and what we're about to see here in the upcoming season. It's pretty level here, but it still needs a little bit more tweaking. You see some scalp. Anywhere you see light marks is where it's kind of scalping. Excuse me. So you need to add in like some sand, and I did. So yeah, this is more gas-powered reel mowing. It's a little bit lower, actually quite a bit lower, because it was floating, because it started to get so thick that my headed cut on the manual went higher as time went by, because it floated more and more. There's some more. And it just continues to get better. And this was all dirt and whatnot. Like, it just feels so well. And that's the last photo. If you want to see more recent photos, I have, all my recent videos have my current condition on my lawn. But there's a little bit of like, it's a little tore up right there. That's because I had some mole problems, and I used a little flag to mark where the mole trap is. But that's a whole different thing. And so this wouldn't look like this if it wasn't for the moles. But I will deal with that. We'll see if they come back this year, and we'll make some progress there. But this kind of gives you a good idea of what the whole lawn could look like without the moles. If you guys have any questions, let me know. But just to give you an idea, on the costs, I think I broke down a number of the costs there. Of course, I spent a little bit more because I made some wrong turns. But on things that weren't worth it, I kind of just didn't really mention it. There you can apply iron to get a deeper green. You can apply, we already talked about the PGR. There's a number of things. The micros, of course, there's like magnesium, manganese, there is boron, copper. There's a number of things you can apply, but if you do a soil test, you can figure it out. But it's mainly the macro, the NPK, that you really need to focus on to get the most of the results. And if you do a soil test, it'll help you figure that out. And then, of course, the pH, again, on the BermudaBible.com, you can type in the word pH, and it'll help you with that. But you just want to make sure your pH is within line. If it's, it needs to be in the 6s generally. If it's in the 7s is not going to be as good. 8s, if you got Texas clay, that's a big problem as well. You need to use some sulfur. some elemental sulfur, which is quite cheap. You apply that generally in the off season, and pH will slowly adjust to be a little bit better. So once the pH is more in line, you get more absorption. And if you have a really bad pH, you can buy those fertilizers we talked about. You can just buy a brand or a type, and it's generally not any more money, that dissolves in the water. And then you can put it in your backpack sprayer when you apply, the same one you use for your herbicides, but instead you can apply the herbicide you can apply the fertilizer in a backpack sprayer, and it'll absorb with the leaf. And when you absorb with the leaf, it doesn't matter what your pH is. So if your pH is off, it doesn't matter a whole lot. Like if you got Texas clay, generally it's a high pH. And in other places, like in the Carolinas, you have, I believe, low pH. And so at both ends, and when you have low pH, you use lime, not sulfur. At both ends, you have issues with absorption. And so once you get those issues figured out, then the granular applications of fertilizer will be better. And the granular is better for like long-term adjustments because it takes time to break down. So it's like a regular kind of feeding, many of them, because some of them will have like a poly coating, so it like lasts 30 days or whatever. But when you're spraying, most people who are spraying fertilizer are spraying like weekly. And you can do that if you want. Some people don't want to. I mean, some people enjoy doing this type of work. I mean, it's totally up to you, the path you want to go. But some of the folks that are, if you're only maintaining 2,000 square feet, spraying a fertilizer once a week it's not too bad, or even once every 10 days or every 2 weeks or whatever. But that's also an option if you have like pH problems. But, first kind of step is just like pre-emergent. If you have the $20, do a soil test. But I hope it's clear to you that like you can take a pretty bad lawn, any condition, and get it, looking half decent for like $500 over the course of like 2 years. So it's not as fast of a transformation as many people online. It's definitely like a slower process. I had anyways. Mine was just, it was just very slow. Aeration is another thing that you can add in to help with like compacted clay. But again, that's kind of optional. There's a degree of like how fast do you want it, how much money do you want to put into it. But in my opinion, $400 can go quite a long way over the course of like a year and a half. So anyways, any questions, drop in the comments. Everything we talked about, there's literally a separate video and article on all of this on the blog or on the channel. If you can't find it, let me know, and I will make sure, either just link it to you, or I will make it if it doesn't exist. But there's 50 plus topics that we talked about today, and there is a separate in-depth article with pictures and everything on the blog and on the YouTube channel. But happy to like expand on that or whatever. So drop your comments if you have any questions. My lawn is not the best out there, but it's I'm quite pleased with where I've got and how far I've come from like a crappy St. Augustine lawn. So figured I put it out there. I know you guys enjoy my videos, so I appreciate all the support, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thanks.